Welcome everyone. We are on week 2 of prayers and meditations by the Mother, batch 7. So let us begin. We have Feb 1, 1914, the first prayer. And then we have another, this little short prayer or reflection. So whoever feels ready, we can maybe first read the prayer and then begin to share our reflections. Yeah, anyone who likes to go first, read the prayer and then maybe share some thoughts. Or if anyone would just like to read first, that's also okay.
I turn towards thee, who art everywhere, and within all, and outside all, intimate essence of all, and remote from all, center of condensation for all energies, creator of conscious individualities. I turn towards thee and salute thee, O liberator of the worlds, and identified with thy divine love, I contemplate the earth and its creatures. This mass of substance put into forms, perpetually destroyed and renewed, this swarming mass of aggregates, which are dissolved as soon as constituted, of beings who imagine that they are conscient and permanent individualities, and who are as ephemeral as a breath, always alike or almost the same in their diversity, repeating indefinitely the same desires, the same tendencies, the same appetites, the same ignorant errors. But from time to time, thy sublime light shines in a being and radiates through him over the world. And then a little wisdom, a little knowledge, a little disinterested faith, heroism, and compassion penetrates men's hearts, transforms their minds, and sets free a few elements from that sorrowful and implacable wheel of existence to which their blind ignorance subjects them. But how much greater a splendor than all that have gone before. How marvelous a glory and light would be needed to draw these beings out of the horrible aberration in which they are plunged by the life of cities and so-called civilizations. What a formidable and at the same time divinely sweet presence would be needed to turn aside all these wills from the bitter struggle for their selfish, mean, and foolish satisfactions, to snatch them from this vortex which hides death behind its treacherous glitter, and turn them towards thy conquering harmony. O Lord, eternal Master, enlighten us, guide our steps, show us the way towards the realization of thy law, towards the accomplishment of thy work. I adore thee in silence and listen to thee in a religious concentration. It's a very beautiful prayer of contemplation, of surrender, of a knowledge of knowing that how how the divine in his form, and how all of us multiple beings and what our tendencies are, and with our appetites and ignorant errors, how we grow. We don't want to grow, rather staying in cities and in our so-called civilized societies. It's a plea for transformation of hearts and minds, and it's just amazing. I don't have words for it. It's a total wow, and a total surrender.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jyotsna. Yeah, anyone who wants to share any reflections and insights? Any few lines that resonated more strongly than others?
Namaskar, Dr. Monica.
Yeah, namaste, Rashmi. Please share.
Yeah, I am coming to that second paragraph. It is coming immediately to my mind. Jada jada hi dharmasya glanirvavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya ch duskritam dharmam sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he takes birth from time to time when there is darkness all around. So from time to time, the sublime light shines in a being. So divine has to come to the earth and radiates through him over the world. And when divine takes the incarnation, a little wisdom, a little knowledge, a little disinterested faith, this is a very fantastic term, disinterested faith, heroism, compassion penetrates men's hearts. And the earlier paragraph, which the mother expresses that how it all started from inconscient matter, and we have come to a stage where our mind has developed, and from that point of view she is telling that we are thinking ourselves as conscient and permanent individualities, but actually we are as ephemeral as breath, and always repeating indefinitely the same desires, same tendencies, same appetites, same ignorant errors. So that is why divine has to come from time to time to infuse a little bit of light in us, to infuse a little wisdom, knowledge, faith, heroism, and compassion in us, so that we come out of that implacable wheel of sorrow and existence. We go beyond the ignorance that subjects us to this, this kind of perennial sufferings. In the next paragraph, she tells us that, how much greater splendor would be needed actually, how much, light would be needed to draw these beings out of this horrible aberration. And what a formidable and divine puissance, sweet puissance would be needed to turn aside all these wheels from bitter struggle. And as always, Mother shows us how to come out of it actually. Again, surrendering ourselves, as rightly Jyotsna said, to pray him so that he may enlighten us, guide our steps. Always, this is the master stroke of all her prayers. To completely surrender and to entreat the divine to guide our steps and show us the way towards the realization. And again, the way she has shown that silence is what we need as a base. So unless And until that silence is established in our being, all these would be a cloudy mixture of so many things from which it would be difficult to come out. So she has always shown us the way. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Rashmiji. Beautiful. Yeah. Many pointers for us here. Many. I think in every prayer, we have so many pointers that even if we stick to one prayer for a lifetime, that should be enough. So many pointers. Yeah.
And so many things she just pack in few lines. They're so pregnant in meaning.
Yeah.
And so many things actually it tells us every prayer.
Absolutely.
Every prayer.
Yeah,
this is a very humbling prayer, actually. If we look at it right from the word go, and where she says, "Who art everywhere and within all and outside all," and she just sets off. It's like setting off the rocket and letting it go zoom. And she's actually touched every part of our life, from taking birth, from the inconscience to life here on earth, to our perishability, to our going ahead. A very humbling prayer. It brings you down on your knees immediately.
I think it's a blessing if it can. Yeah.
And the best part here is actually she is because unless and until one is realized, one cannot say that who art everywhere and within all and outside all.
Absolutely.
That means she has touched a peak.
Yeah.
She has climbed a summit where she has seen everything, actually, the inconscient matter, what is happening, and where again she has seen the divine in all. Vasudeva Sarvamiti.
Bilkul. Yeah. Bilkul. Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, Ashpriya, anything from you?
I'm just listening to the...
Okay. If anything comes up, any personal reflection or anything, you
sure.
Share. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Please, Rashmiji.
The beautiful thing that the word disinterested faith. That word itself is so pregnant. Disinterested. How one can be disinterested?
Would you like to share a bit, Rashmiji, what really means to you by disinterested? Something must have resonated very strongly, I'm sure. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, well, really, a burning faith is a word that can immediately strike a chord. But a disinterested faith, that means a faith. What I understand is unquestioning, but how do I link it to this disinterested? Unquestioning faith, that is what I mean by it, what I understand from it, but how do I actually really translate otherwise?
Yeah. I think Mother also talks about having no likings, no preferences, or also at times becoming desireless. I think there it almost resonates with that also, that you have faith that you are taken care of, but whether you live or die, or you get a disease or don't get a disease, whether you walk this way, that way, it's totally almost unconditional. It does not matter, unshakable kind of a quality. And it does not have any personal interest in walking on this path. Usually we all walk initially, especially with a personal interest but as it grows deeper, the path also becomes a part of us. I think then there is no personal agenda that we have on walking on this path. So almost what we have in Buddhism, we have this idea of bodhicitta, who does not live for himself, but lives for others. So he does not have any personal interest in living. And Mother also, I think, she shares that those of us who are connected with Mother, Sri Aurobindo or Divine, they want to come again and again, take a human birth so that they can serve the Divine. Just that is the only purpose. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It resonates, this disinterested faith, because usually even when I have faith, there is a hidden interest somewhere lying, which we are not able to catch. Yeah, great. Yeah, so keep sharing, anyone, if anything comes up at any moment. We'll just kind of go through it, maybe see if, something comes. So this, the first quality that we were talking of, thee who art everywhere and within all and outside all, intimate essence of all and remote from all, center of, this sarva vyapi, that everywhere, antaryami, sarva vyapi, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. The divine consciousness at times, or our true nature, has also been referred, or almost kind of the other symbol that is used for it is like space or sky. So you cannot grasp the space, you cannot really grasp the sky, but it is everywhere. Space is everywhere, but the moment you grasp it, you have lost it. So and it is everywhere. So even in the plunges of a black hole, it's because of the space that a black hole exists. So although we may say it's very tight and no light can pass through, although things are changing, newer discoveries are being there, and yet we know that without space nothing can be in existence. So and this is one actually very powerful tool for those of us who want to meditate and experiment, that when we focus our consciousness on space outside the body and within the body, the space within the body, and kind of place our attention there in each particle of our body, each space that is there in our body, that also brings you down, makes you very grounded. It really brings you here and now. So thee who art everywhere and within all and outside all, intimate essence of all and remote from all. So space has this untouchable quality with it. So for example, if a room is there and so many stuff is, much of stuff is lying inside the room, and if a fire happens, the room is burnt, all the material is burnt, but the space is untouched still. Nothing has happened to the space. So although it is intimate essence, and yet it is untouched, it's remote from all. That's why we also call it like it's a different dimension. It's a fourth dimension. So it is there, yet it is not there. So there is a paradox also. So intimate essence of all and remote from all. So the moment I say I have grasped it, I have actually lost it. So that's why people who are really kind of realized, you would never find them saying, yes, I have got it, because they know that you can't say that. You really can't say that. It's nothing to be gotten, that you can, only objects can be gotten, but divine or our own true self is not an object. So I turn towards thee and salute thee, O liberator of the worlds. Why? Because our human mortal consciousness is in a suffocation. Usually we live in a very egoistic state of being, which is a very tensed kind of a quality with it, very suffocated, very limited. So we are imprisoned in our own self, in our own mind. We are imprisoned. And when we contemplate on the divine consciousness, when we know ourselves as the divine consciousness through meditative experiences or living also the practical experiences of life, it liberates you. It liberates you from the clutches of the ego. Even when I go to a forest, I may think that I have now gotten rid of the family and other worries, but the mind is still with me. The ultimate prison is still with me. So it's the mind which has to be understood. Really kind of going deeper into the essence, the source of this mind. O liberator of the worlds, and identified with thy divine love. So here, as Rashmi ji was sharing, she has achieved, the union is already there. She's identified with the divine love. In Savitri also, this is mentioned. Identified with thy divine love, I contemplate the earth and its creature, this mass of substance put into forms, perpetually destroyed and renewed. Like as if, I was reading somewhere where Mother commenting on Life Divine says that the nature, as it makes these forms that appear in existence, it is like she's making with clay. You make something with clay, you don't like it, you pull it apart, then you make something else. So nature is very abundant in creating. She's not economical. So she would create something. If she doesn't like it, it doesn't serve the purpose of human evolution or evolution in general, she would destroy it. You would not find the trace of anything anymore. So dinosaurs gone, extinct. So many things just become extinct. Because why? Because nature did not find it really useful that it should be carried on. So there is nothing personal about it. And that's how she makes, uses this clay, Prakriti, and she makes something, a beautiful form, gives whole attention and essence to it. And then if it doesn't serve the purpose, okay, next thing, the next thing. So these forms perpetually destroyed and renewed. And not only, in evolution, even day-to-day life, we think we are the same, but we are never the same in the next moment. Every moment, cells are changing, dying. We are being renewed every moment, but we live as if we have a solid identity to us. That's what kills us over time. We think that I was the one which was previously, and now I am the same one. I cannot change. I have been like this. So it destroys us slowly. This solidifying ourselves as something separate destroys us. And if we keep ourselves fluid, we also know that we are reforming and renewing ourselves every day. So I can change. I can change myself. I may be very bad yesterday, but now I have the knowledge. I can change. I can put it into practice. So this swarming mass of aggregates which are dissolved as soon as constituted. So in eternity, there is a timeless time. There is no limit of time. Eons and lifetimes are nothing. It's a blink in eternity. Dissolved as soon as constituted. So in eternity, eons of human existence doesn't matter. Other things will come up, which are dissolved as soon as constituted, of beings who imagine that they are conscient, referring to human beings. We Shan Bhangur, Pani ka bulbula, people have metaphorically related human existence to that. We think that we are going to live forever. We don't even know the next moment. A sudden heart attack, something happens and gone, phew, just poof, like a bubble. And we have so many resentments that hold us. Every day we carry so much of burden, so much of future expectations that we almost miss life totally every day. Every day we keep on missing life, carrying this burden on our head as if we are going to live forever. So these beings who imagine that they are conscient and permanent individualities, this is our folly. Mother is referring to our folly here. That they are constant and they are ephemeral as a breath. Comes, goes, comes, goes. And we think that we are always alike or almost the same. That's our folly. Appearances deceive. We are one with the whole existence. If I even think for a moment a little bad ill will comes to me, and if I do not actually take care of the ill will, transform it into goodwill, I am destroying myself. Why? Because I'm one with the whole existence. So one thing which we can do, which I was, in Buddhist tradition, there is this thing of this little practice called Tonglen. where what you do is that imagine that you're suffering. It may be a relationship that causes the suffering. It may be ego that causes the suffering. Maybe a disease comes, causes you suffering. You lose a loved one, causes you suffering. Loved one goes far away, causes you suffering. Anything. So what you do is how you transform it. Instead of feeling victimized in the process, you connect to all the living beings who are going through the suffering of a disease. You connect to all the living beings who have lost a loved one. And you inhale their suffering and exhale harmony and good health and contentment to them. So this is how we can actually choose the highest possibility for me. Although, yes, I am going through suffering, absolutely. But can I make use of this suffering and connect and transform this suffering transmute it into something higher, something beautiful? Make my pain a connection to the others. Okay, I'm going through a disease. Maybe I've been diagnosed with something. So can I connect with all the people who are diagnosed with something, who are going through this anxiety, inhale their anxiety and exhale goodwill out. And then, they also say that when we inhale, if you try to experiment with this, something in us does not want to inhale. What is that little thing? That is our ego. Some little thing in us, resistance. Oh my God, what will happen to me if I inhale others' suffering? So it's only through practice and purity that one can really, do that. Because you will see the moment you think about inhaling others' suffering, first of all, the first thing that comes is, what will happen to me? If I inhale somebody else's suffering. While the paradox is that by inhaling the suffering of the whole mankind and exhaling out wellness and harmony, we actually crush nothing but the ego. Only ego can be crushed. Truth cannot be crushed. So that's the beauty, that we are so ephemeral. We try to hold on, grasp. Buddha said attachment is suffering. And if we see any suffering that we touch upon in our life, definitely I am holding on to something, either an opinion, a mental judgment. This should happen this way only. Why did that person said that to me? Something or the other I am holding to. Otherwise, there is no reason for suffering to be there. So I think he caught the essence of all pain of human existence, that we cling to bodies, we cling to our personalities, we cling to our self-images, we cling to our thoughts and feelings and wants and desires and ambition and, name it. We just cling. Like we are very sticky in nature. So here Mother exactly kind of points towards that we think we are conscient and permanent individualities and who are as ephemeral as a breath. Aaj hai, kal nahi hai. Is moment hai, kal nahi hai. People talk about when people die, Are main kal hi to mila tha. That's how it is. That you are here and then you are not there, gone. So can I make use of this life, each moment of this life, choosing the best possible option for me, which takes me to the higher path, which I would actually like to do if I'm dying right now. What would I like to do? In what state would I like to pass away if I am dying right now? I think this can be a beautiful meditation and almost puts things in perspective, that we can let go of all the trivial that I am holding on to, that if I am dying right now, what would I think of? What would I have? What is the inner state that would be there? So always alike or almost the same in their diversity, repeating indefinitely the same desires. Ye banda chahiye, wo bandi chahiye, wo fame chahiye, wo name chahiye, wo approval. Ye wali job, itna paisa, ye wali gaadi. We are so alike actually in one way. We think that we are so unique and special, but where is the uniqueness? We have not yet touched upon that uniqueness. The divine presence is the uniqueness. Because in each and every person, the divine presence has a very beautiful way of manifesting. But the way we are right now, it's like we are all alike. There is no individuality to us. The same tendencies, same appetites, and the same ignorant errors. Beautiful. I think Mother shows us the mirror here. Those of us who would like to see the mirror, this is our mirror. Beautiful to look at it every day. But it's not all sad. Mother now brings in a light here. It's all not that gloomy. But from time to time, thy sublime light, I think Rashmi ji touched upon it beautifully, recounting the verse from Bhagavad Gita. From time to time, thy sublime light shines. And not only evolutionary perspective, in our individual lives, from time to time, we touch this light. Day-to-day life, 24 hours, you touch upon something deeper. And mother says, whenever you touch upon something deeper in you, it's something potent and real. You must try to relive it. You must not discount it for the fact that, oh my God, ek hi bari to hua hai, sabko hota hoga ye experience, nothing special about it. Mother says you must recollect it, relive that inner state again and again, that if it has happened one time, I can make it happen, more often. That inner state, that beautiful connection with oneself. So from time to time, thy sublime light shines in a being, radiates through him over the world. A little act of kindness, maybe a little selfless act, a word of compassion. Nothing really special or extraordinary, very ordinary stuff, but we may just kind of, miss it, ignore it. A little selflessness, maybe you chose to step back from your selfish need and gave away something which you really loved. Look at that. Very simple. Very simple. You gave away something which you really loved. And that's the shine the divine presence, shining through you in that moment. Radiates through him over the world. And then a little wisdom, little knowledge, a little disinterested faith, that if an act of kindness or compassion is done, I have full faith that we all are taken care of. And yet I have no personal interest. I don't want anything. There is no want left. What can be more beautiful than that? In one particular moment, if you can touch upon that, I don't want anything. Just this is enough. This life is enough. Whatever the moment is enough. Heroism. You risk your life for saving somebody else. You self-exceed yourself. You go beyond your boundaries, risking your own mortal existence. You think, doesn't matter, let me save that person. For example, just an example, And compassion penetrates men's hearts. Beauty of divine presence. Many a times we see that happening in our lives. And we don't forget these moments. If you recollect your moments, where your lives have been touched by somebody's little act of kindness, maybe you were in absolute need and something just happened, and helped you in distress. Nobody forgets that. That has the quality, penetrates men's hearts, transforms their minds, and sets free a few elements from that sorrowful and implacable wheel of existence, the wheel of chakra of karma, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, tied in that we are. So as long as we are living as an ego, as long as I'm acting through my tendencies unconsciously, repeating my impulsive acts, it is impossible that I am able to step out of that suffocation, which is the wheel of existence. Kal chakra, as we say. चलती चाकी देख के दिया कबीरा रोए, दो पाटन के बीच में साबुत बचा न कोई. Running towards pleasure, hiding away from pain. So in between this, I'm grounded. We are ground again. We are grinding ourselves again and again. And then we blame others or situations that, what should I do? My life is so difficult. But we always have a choice. And people have much, much difficult lives than us. We are really very blessed that we have almost everything that is required for a mortal existence. So we don't see that as a blessing. We just have, ego has a way of complaining all the time. So Mother says that if we are able to touch and live this divine light, then something gets freed from that suffocation of the ego. Few elements from that sorrowful, and it's a sorrowful living. Ego lives in a sorrowful world. Nobody can be happy living in an egoistic consciousness. implacable wheel of existence, unbending. It would not change. I cannot say that, oh my God, I have done so many virtues. Now please count this and change the wheel of existence for me. Not happening. It's only by becoming more and more conscious of our truth that I can step out of that chakra. Who I am truly. Getting in touch with that, living that, only then I can step out of that continuing cause and effect and this determinism and that determinism, in which their blind ignorance subjects them. First of all, an ignorance, and then to top it, it's blind. So such is our, and this is also a reference. I remember, when you see Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, they can't see. It's almost, even in Savitri, Dumatsena, I think, loses his kingdom. So these are all references to a mind gone really blind, not at the service of the wisdom of heart, but really lost in the senses, blind ignorance. And then she continues and says, but how much greater a splendor than all that have gone before. So much avatars, so many avatars have come. So many masters have come, uncountable masters. Some of them even not, we don't even know the names. Come and gone, given their wisdom away. But how much greater a splendor than all that have gone before. How marvelous a glory and light would be needed. Because, our slumber is so deep. We are sleeping, my house is burning, and I am not even getting to know the heat. Such is our slumber. Centuries and lifetimes of our slumber. And that's why all the masters have said, jago, jago. We wonder कि भैया हम जागे तो हुए कि क्या, what are they referring to? कहाँ जागू मैं और क्या जागू? Wake up to your true nature, who you truly are. How much great a splendor than all that have gone before, how marvelous a glory and light would be needed, because the slumber is deep. All of us think that we have got it, but we haven't. We haven't. The journey is really long. We're just half asleep maybe. Some of us may have just, after, many times it happens on the spiritual path, we read beautiful words and the book enters us. The words enter us. It's a beautiful thing, first of all. It's a blessing that it should happen. The other thing that happens is we think that mera ho gaya. That's the biggest mistake I think that we do. कि हमारा कभी नहीं होगा अभी. It's a long journey. And even if हो गया, जब हो जाता है तो तभी पता लगता है कि अरे अभी तो बहुत बचा है. So much of unconscious acts are still there in my being. Unconscious movements, all the reactions, impulses. To become conscious of them, to live a conscious life. So she's saying that kitni aur light chahiye hogi, how much greater a splendor than all that have gone before. How marvelous a glory and light would be needed to draw these beings out of the horrible aberration. Ego is the horrible aberration. To living as a separate self, to not knowing our true nature. Horribly aberrated. We think, look at the society that we are living in. We think it's all very normal to celebrate festivals like this. Look at it. We have lost the true meaning of those festivals and we are just ritually, in like a mechanical fashion, consuming things after another. Horrible aberration, the lifestyles that we have. Horrible aberration in which they are plunged by the life of cities and so-called civilizations. We never question our living. What a formidable and at the same time divinely sweet puissance would be needed to turn aside all these wills from the bitter struggle for their selfish, mean, and foolish satisfactions. My world revolves around me, such a little world that I have. 24 hours my thought go around me. मेरी क्या need है, मेरी क्या desire है, मुझे क्या चाहिए. Bitter struggle. It's a bitter struggle because हाथ कुछ नहीं आने वाला. We are never going to get anything which can give us lasting satisfaction apart from, as Rashmi ji was touching upon, the realization of our true nature. And that requires sadhana, that requires discipline. Bitter struggle. So it is a bitter struggle. It's going to be kadwa, angur khatte. So because we are not going to get happiness the way we want happiness, through external persons, beings, situations, workplace scenarios, finances, wanting things my own way, we are not going to get happiness that way. It's only by realization of my true nature that I get in touch with a fountain of happiness within, that I don't need to depend on anyone for my happiness now. Understanding the nature of fleeting nature of existence, that yes, relationships might be beautiful, communities might be beautiful that I may be, a part of, but they all come and go. They will come and go. I cannot grasp at them. Even gurus and masters come and go in the sense, not in their essence, but physical bodies would come and go. So can I have a life? Can I have a very, very deep life where I am responsible for my own innate satisfaction? I think there we end the torture on others. Then I cannot be inflict myself on others. Then I can never be atrocious in a relationship, that you give me what I want. That would never happen. To snatch them from this vortex which hides death behind its treacherous glitter. This is our kind of, at the moment wherein we stand in evolution, death is inevitable. Only for those of us who enter into great sadhana and, beings like Mahavatar Babaji who have gone beyond their bodies, they can take different forms. But otherwise, this is our path. Death is here, right here. So even if I have all the money that I have wanted, all the relationships that I wanted, here stands death, next round the corner. Everything will be taken away. Khali haath aaye the, khali haath jayenge. To snatch them from this vortex of that which hides death behind its treacherous glitter and turn them towards thy conquering harmony. So it takes a lot of trouble of masters and avatars coming and going, that a few of us wake up to our own self. We are so stubborn and tied up to our sweets and candies and lollies. We don't want to leave them. So all the masters who have come, all the gurus who have come, they have to put a lot of effort to turn us to the divine. Who wants to turn to the divine? Not really all of us. Only after a lot of suffering maybe we may turn. But otherwise, if the life is going okay, who wants to turn to the divine? No one. So, O Lord, eternal Master, enlighten us, guide our steps, show us the way towards the realization of thy law, the divine Swadharma unfolding itself through each one of us, the divine law, the divine will towards the accomplishment of thy work. Each one of us, if takes enough discipline and sadhana that in this lifetime, if not in this one, maybe next one, I am going to dedicate myself to my own, getting in touch with my own true nature. Why? Because that's the only way you can serve humanity. That's the only way. Ego is hardly of any use to humanity. Compassion, kindness, perfection, all springs up from this getting in touch with our true essence, true divine presence. So this is the divine work that all of us are here for, but we forget. So the idea is to remind. By these sessions, we are doing nothing but reminding ourselves of our work. The work is very personal. Work is very private. It happens in our own silences. But through sessions or collective, sadhana, we just remind ourselves of the work to be done, because there are so many distractions out there. Everything comes here distracting, appearing to be so important. yet it is not. So I adore thee in silence. I think Rashmiji touched upon the importance of silence, and listen to thee in a religious concentration, that only for listening to you, the divine essence, my life is there. So let me sit in silence, and with a vigilant ear, inward ear, let me listen to what you want to guide me or take me towards. Very important to sit in silences, and we see that only rarely we touch upon true silence. The mind is such a chatterbox usually, but even then I feel that we must sit in mindful awareness and see how long can we sit really. Every 10 minutes, 5 minutes, we see something or the other thing becomes very restless in ourselves. We want to move, we want to turn, maybe the body wants a change. So there are enough distractions out there. So it's beautiful to still and be absolutely silent, not only just outwardly, but inwardly also. Very interesting practice. Yeah. Yeah, any further reflections, anyone? Yes, Rashmiji.
Yeah, superb. Thank you, Dr. Monica. Fantastic. It took me to a meditative state. Wonderful the way you spoke.
Beautiful. Glad to know. So I think then we can continue with this little, very short one again. And I think it would be just a continuation of what already a very deep elaboration that we touched upon. February 2, 1914. So anyone who feels ready to read the prayer and maybe share anything that you want, please.
May I?
Yes, please.
February 2nd, 1914. O Lord, I would like to be so ardent a love that all loneliness may be filled up by it and all sorrows soothed. O Lord, I cry unto thee, make me a burning brazier which consumes all suffering and transforms it into joyous light, irradiating the hearts of all. Grant my prayer. Transform me into a brazier of pure love and boundless compassion. No words comes to my mind that how I'll be a brazier of pure love.
Yeah.
Make me a burning brazier which consumes all suffering, transforms it into joyous light. This only we can meditate.
Beautiful. Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
No words can express and can explain all this actually.
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of state of consciousness one must be in even to say this prayer.
Yeah.
We are so lonely, so sorrowful at this state where we find ourselves in. to say this prayer itself, we need so much of sadhana. I really.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think this is really very, very powerful. And, Mother, already a Buddhist, this we see reflections of Buddhist teachings here. In this prayer itself, the Tonglen practice that I was sharing with you earlier, exactly, hitting almost there. That yeah. So when I am suffering, yes, it's not that we are out of suffering. It's not that we have become egoless, but I see that I am suffering. There is something in me which can see the suffering. So can I transmute now this situation that I am in? Connect through my suffering to the suffering of all, and without any self-interest, without any self-preservation, demand of self-preservation, can I become, and this brazier, if you look at the meaning of brazier is this pan, like a kind of a pan which contains hot coal, so you need a tremendous amount of strength to be able to hold hot coal. You cannot be frail. But having said that, I think all that we need is just a little willingness. That's all that is needed. In Mother's words, it's aspiration. If in my suffering I aspire to soothe the suffering of others, I think immediately there comes a divine descent. Immediately. It doesn't take much time. And you inhale the suffering of others, including your own, and exhale out, healing, calm, and this Mother says sorrows soothed, or joy irradiating the hearts of all. Can we do that? Can we do that? I think all of us have the capability. We all can do that. None of us can say, I'm very weak, I can't. Yes, Rashmiji.
No, it's a wonderful thought, actually. Dr. Monica, it's wonderful, really.
Yeah.
This needs to be practiced by all of us.
Absolutely.
From this angle, I have not really thought of it, but it's a wonderful way of looking at things. Even if in my sorrows, in my loneliness also, if I can really share the sufferings of others, and as you said, inhale the suffering of others and exhale the warmth and love and compassion for others, that would be really wonderful.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. And it's very empowering, in the beginning, before, the mind thinks about it, the prayer, mind may think about it, what would happen if I inhale the suffering. But the moment we have a little willingness and we start to do this practice in our silences, you will see that it actually empowers you. It does not break you. It's a very empowering practice. And like this, I can make use of all the challenging situations that I go through. Any challenge that you go through in day-to-day life, you transmute into all the people who are going through this challenge, may they be healed. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that, that leaves with us with something to kind of take home, maybe practice in our silences. Yeah.
It's a fantastic session, Dr. Monica. I really.
I'm glad. I'm glad that it resonated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So any further? I think this is all so much kind of complete onto itself. It's almost given us a little practice for all of us to do, almost for a lifetime. Yes, Jyotsna ji. Yes.
No, it's a complete prayer. I think early morning you read one prayer and you're done. This just stays with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I think we get a beautiful variety here, also this touch of Buddhism that mother gives in her, all the, the words of the mother, they are as if they have this flavor of Buddhist teachings along with that. And it's really very empowering, very, very empowering.
That was for, I think, a span of about 3-4 years. That when she was reading the Dhammapada, that she quoted a lot of Buddhism at that time.
Yeah.
In her writings, in her talks, in her discussions and all.
Yeah.
And then slowly she sort of it changed.
Yeah.
Change means she didn't leave it, but she didn't.
I think she developed something new out of it. But still, even after that, for example, in this prayer, exactly if you look up into the Buddhist teachings, it is the practice of Tonglen that she is doing here, make me a burning brazier which consumes all suffering and transforms it into joyous light. Exactly that, the practice referred to in Buddhism.
We should actually see the year in which she was, those 4 years in which she was reading Dhammapada. Maybe these prayers were written in those years.
Yeah.
I will look it up.
Yeah.
From our book, no?
Okay.
Maybe there.
Yeah, definitely you can do that. No, obviously, I think we can look up the facts and figures, but the idea is, can we make it into a practice, and if it resonates only, if it resonates with us, because this is so empowering. This is like you have almost made a good use of your life, and each challenge that comes to you, you have made a good use of that. So that's really beautiful. Yeah.
One thing that I have found of late, which really sets your day, is early morning. The first thing you read is one prayer. Just one prayer in a total silence, first absorption into the mind. And my God, the impact it makes. And then if you read the same prayer some other day, it'll have another meaning. Early morning, early, right when you wake up, after you've woken up and the first thing that you open to read in a book. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring, very inspiring. It stays with you. It plays like a tape recorder the whole day in your head. Despite us doing many other things, this doesn't leave you.
Beautiful.
I also think that, actually this practice, makes us deeply connected with other people, someone else's suffering. And in a way, it bodily also impacts. Somewhere you feel that, your heart is, there's sensation in your body.
Yes.
Can you post that inhalation, exhalation, what exactly is said, Monica?
Sorry, which one?
The inhaling and exhaling.
The practice that I'm referring to?
Huh.
Okay. Yeah, I can share that. Yeah, Ashpriya was sharing that you get also a feeling of oneness in the body. Yes, absolutely.
In the body. And,
absolutely.
It's humbling. It's actually, I think the fact that we feel humble during this kind of, when you try, and it's not really easy also. At times it gets, if you're not really in that frame of mind, you have to try really hard.
Yes.
I think. And then that, there is a feeling of, you feel really humbled by this.
Yes, absolutely. And the body is there giving us pointers all the time. When we are in the grip of ego consciousness, it gives us pointers. Something burns, or or heart burns, or we get a backache or something. And when we are not in the grip of ego consciousness, when there is oneness that we feel, the body tells. So the body signals.
And I've seen that difference. That days when actually I did get a backache, and now that you're telling me, I can relate to that. That I did get it because I don't generally have, but I did get it. So, that is really, and that fact that we are opening our body also to that suffering
Beautiful.
is actually
Absolutely.
is in a way very, very humbling, and because it is so humbling, it is so powerful.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, beautifully said. Yes. Yeah. Great. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for listening, especially, and sharing your reflections and insights. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you, Monica. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Monica.
Thank you. Bye-bye.